8 spine-chilling encounters on forbidden Appalachian trails that will haunt you forever. The woods of Maple Hollow are no ordinary trees. They are sentinels of an ancient horror that has swallowed the unwary. Picture this. Late at night, a chilling fog rolls in, wrapping the trees in ghostly fingers. You hear whispers. Are they human? Or are they something else? Each rustle of leaves makes your heart race faster, an instinct whispering that danger lurks behind every shadow. The stories are everywhere. 8 encounters you won't shake off. They'll haunt you forever. Tim Parker, an innkeeper with graying hair and weary eyes, felt the weight of those tales press down on him. Once bustling with hikers eager to explore the Appalachian trails, the inn now stood like a ghost of its former self, its charm overshadowed by local lore and the whispers of those who'd vanished. Flickering lights in the distance shimmered like warnings. Vivid carvings in the trees spelled out forbidden words, and the local deputy's dismissive attitude was the coldest comfort. Stay away from the trails, they'd warned. They're not safe. But Tim rationalized it. They'd camped these hills since his children were born. The woods were their haven. Yet Clara's anxious eyes betrayed her fears. She fidgeted each time they spoke of their annual camping trip, her gaze darting to the dark tree line creeping ever closer. Days before their trip, Clara discovered the journal stuffed in an old box, hidden for years. Dust covered it, but the words inside were a nightmare. Newspaper clippings detailed disappearances, victims lost along the forbidden trails. Each article added weight to the knot growing in Tim's gut, a creeping dread overtaking his bravado. As Clara narrated her findings, her voice trembled. "We can't ignore this, Tim. We should seek help from the town's elders." He waved her off, pretending the rustle of the curtains was just the wind. The more they researched, the more sinister the stories became. With each disappearance, the local legend of a vengeful spirit protecting the trails lingered like fog. Tim could almost hear the tales whispered behind closed doors, secrets hushed that were better left buried. He convinced himself that they would be fine. The forest had always been their happy place. But as darkness fell on their camping night, the family's laughter stilled in a heartbeat. The chilly air closed in on them as they ventured deeper into the woods. Shadows loomed like specters, the flickering light from their fire casting eerie shapes that seemed to dance just beyond sight. Clara's grip on Tim's arm tightened, and Sarah whispered, "Did you hear that?" Suddenly, a howl pierced the night air, echoing through the trees, and the world seemed to freeze. Panic shot through them like ice water. The family exchanged wide-eyed looks. Tim tried to calm them, though his heart raced wildly against his chest. "It's just the wind," he insisted, though uncertainty gnawed at his confidence. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening." YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Chill to the bone, they tried to shake off the growing dread, forcing smiles as they gathered around the fire. But as they shared stories, the shadows stretched farther, wrapping tighter until the familiar warmth of laughter turned cold. A branch snapped, and suddenly Tim caught a glimpse of movement, something grotesque and unnatural lurking just behind a tree, its outline a twisted form against the moonlight. The path home began to blur, warping like a haunted dream. Panic surged through Tim. It was no longer just the stories weighing over them. The truth was dawning. There was something in these woods, watching, waiting. Was it too late to turn back? Tim's instinct screamed for him to run, to grab Clara and Sarah and flee back to the safety of their inn. But something kept him rooted in place, a primal need to protect his family paralyzing him. The movement he glimpsed flitted away, leaving only silence in its wake. "Did you see that?" Clara's voice was barely above a whisper, her wide eyes searching the dark. Tim shook his head, forcing a smile onto his face, the attempt shaky at best. "It was probably just a deer or something," he said. But even he didn't believe the words as they slipped from his lips. Another howl sliced through the night, sending Sarah scrunching closer to Tim's side. The air grew colder. Tim felt a chill crawl up his spine. He didn't want to think about what lurked in the night, what had claimed the others. But the urge to reassure his family exerted an iron grip on him. "Let's just stay by the fire," he suggested. "We'll eat, then head to bed." But as the minutes dragged on, the fire flickering and sputtering, the air thickened with dread. Clara glanced at the trees, then at Tim, her lips pressed tightly together, hiding words unvoiced. "Tim, we should really think about leaving. I don't feel safe here." His heart pulsed heavily, a rhythm he felt in his throat. "We'll be fine," he urged, but doubt twisted painfully in his stomach. As the flames struggled against the encroaching darkness, he suddenly felt exposed, as if something unseen was assessing them. Just then, the shadows deepened, and everything within Tim screamed that they weren't alone. The rustling played tricks on his mind, warping his senses. An irrational thought rang like a bell. What if they weren't just here for a camping trip? What if the woods had drawn them intentionally, like bait to a predator? As the last of the twilight faded into pitch black, a distant moan echoed, layered over the howl. The sound sent shivers straight down Tim's spine, the pitch and tone hauntingly familiar. It was low and anguished, almost like a voice calling for help. "Did you hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Tim nodded, the air tightening in his chest. "Yeah, but it could be anything. Just the wind," he added again, but this time even he couldn't feign comfort in the words. The fire blazed bright, momentarily eliminating the twisted branches above, but beyond that, the forest loomed, dark and ominous. Tim noticed how the trees seemed to warp into grotesque shapes, their gnarled roots clawing at the earth like skeletal fingers reaching for lost souls. Then a figure emerged from the darkness, a gaunt figure, skin stretched tight over skeletal limbs, eyes that shone like polished stones. It was so thin, it seemed to bleed into the shadow around it, the figure gliding rather than walking. Tim's breath caught in his throat, a strangled gasp fighting its way out. "Run!" he shouted, springing to his feet, the urgency spilling over him. Clara's feet moved automatically, pulling Sarah along as they grabbed their gear. As they turned toward the path that led away from their dying fire, the figure stood still, watching, waiting, an ethereal amalgamation of all the terror the stories had held. Desperation fueled their flight, but as they plunged deeper into the woods, the howls rose higher, harmonizing into a cacophony of despair and fear. A whirlwind of panic engulfed them, but the scratching at their backs urged them to press on. But the trees twisted and turned, altering the path as if they wanted to prevent escape. The genuine fear gnawed at Tim, clawing at his mind. What if they wandered too far into the heart of the forest? What if there was no way back? Then, amidst the chaos, an unholy whisper slipped through the branches, clear and haunting. "Stay with us." In that moment, Tim's legs faltered. He turned slightly, catching sight of the fading fire behind them, its ember glow growing distant. It flickered like a heartbeat, but the encroaching darkness promised something far worse. The woods were alive, breathing, closing in around them. Maybe the stories were true. Maybe there was nowhere to go. Just when Tim thought he couldn't take another step, a familiar voice called from the shadows. "Help me." It sounded just like Sarah. His heart raced as a sickening realization dawned. They weren't just running from darkness. They were running toward it. What lay ahead in this twisted wilderness, and what awaited them at the end of the trail? Tim's heart thundered in his chest as panic surged through him. The haunting call, more melodic than comforting, twisted sharply in his ears. "Sarah!" he shouted, voice cracking against the back of his throat. The weight of dread anchored him to the ground, but Clara's grip on his arm pulled him toward a chaotic escape. "Run, Tim!" she cried, a wild look in her eyes, desperation coursing through her. The chaotic echoes of the woods swallowed the sound of her plea, replaced instead by the rustling of leaves and snapping twigs. As if the trees themselves conspired against them, the foliage conjoined, deadening their path. Tim glanced back, the darkness seemingly hungry, wearing the shape of the gaunt figure, still lurking just beyond the waning light. Sarah's voice pierced the veil of night again. "Help me!" Was it really her, or some twisted mimicry meant to lure them deeper into the woods? Tim's chest tightened with anguish as he wrestled against his instincts, trying to fight the rising urge to gallop toward the sound. "Go this way," Clara directed, dragging him down a narrow alley of thinner trees, praying it would lead them away from whatever hunted them. Branches reached out like claws, scratching at their clothing as they pushed on. Every rustle seemed amplified, every whisper of the wind a taunt. Tim's heart raced as he fought to quell the panic rising inside him. He focused on Clara's form ahead, desperate to keep her in sight. A sudden howl, different from the previous, pierced through the air like a dagger. The ground vibrated beneath Tim's feet, a bone-deep thrumming that rattled his core. It felt almost alive, part of the forest itself writhing with malignant energy. "Tim, look out!" Clara shrieked, shoving him aside, just before a heavy branch fell from above, splintering against the earth where he'd stood. The force sent a blast of debris flying, lashing against their skin like sharp needles. "Clara!" Tim shouted, scrambling back to his feet and rushing to her side. She took a moment to recover, her breath coming in frantic gasps. "We have to keep moving." "No!" she protested. "Where is Sarah?" Tim's stomach sank. The name echoed in his mind, laced with fear. She can't be far. We just have to find her." They stumbled deeper into the woods, swerving around gnarled roots and slippery moss. The malevolent presence trailing them felt nearer, the darkness seeping into their bones like frost. Every heartbeat filled with the cold truth. Time was running out, and with it, their hope. Suddenly, they burst into a clearing, moonlight spilling like silver ink across the forest floor. It offered a moment's relief before reality clawed its way back. In the center, a twisted altar-like formation of rocks loomed, covered with what appeared to be remnants of torn clothing, dirty and blood-soaked. A guttural, rhythmic chant echoed from somewhere beyond the trees, pulsating through the clearing. "Do you hear that?" Tim's voice wavered as dread gripped him. Clara nodded, horror painted across her features. "We have to leave, now!" Before they could move, the gaunt figure materialized again at the edge of the clearing, its hollow eyes boring into them, each glance a promise of despair. "Join us," it whispered, an irresistible pull lacing. Its voice reverberating around them, tugging at Tim's very soul. "Stay back!" Tim held Clara behind him, but a sense of hopelessness wrapped around them, rooting them where they stood. "Help me!" Sarah's plaintive cry rose again, but this time it was accompanied by a deeper voice, promising safety in submission. The shadows danced closer, and desperation surged anew. "Clara, we can't let it take her." But a flicker of doubt wove through him. What if joining meant safety? What if leaving meant certain doom? The trees shifted, whispering secrets only they could understand, and the chance to flee felt increasingly futile. "Come to us." The chant grew louder, a sinister symphony surrounding them as the figure drew nearer. "Tim," Clara's voice trembled. "What do we do?" He turned to her, determination hardening his gaze. They had to choose, to break free from the spell or succumb to the call of the shadows. With a fierce pull, he grabbed her hand, knowing they had to make a stand. Just as the figure stretched its bony hand toward them, the earth trembled violently, a warning against their hopelessness. "Run or fight, we decide, now!" What truly lay ahead was obscured by uncertainty, but whatever darkness lay at their heels was relentless and hungry. Would they brave the shadows, or were they already entangled in a far worse fate? Tim and Clara's hands clasped tightly as they faced the gaunt figure. The ancient chant swirled in the air, wrapping around them like smoke, intoxicating and menacing. Fear choked his throat, yet a surge of adrenaline pushed him forward. "Time to choose," he shouted, his voice rising over the ghostly murmurs. In a single, frantic motion, they turned away from the figure, bolting back into the depths of the woods. The chilling howl of the forest called out behind them, furious in its pursuit. The branches clawed at their backs, furious at their defiance. And the soft earth seemed treacherous with shadowy roots lurking beneath. Tim's breath came in ragged gasps, heart pounding like a war drum. "We have to make it to the road," he yelled to Clara, glancing over his shoulder. The figure was nowhere to be seen, but he felt it, the weight of its eyes, the promise of suffering lingering in the air. The shadows felt thicker, colder, like a living thing that wrapped around him with every hurried step. "Tim!" Clara shouted, a note of panic coloring her voice. He turned, just in time to see her stumble, lost to the slippery ground. He lunged for her, pulling her up before she could fall too deep into the clutches of the earth. "Keep moving," he urged, but his voice was threaded with panic. The forest howled in response, branches crackled like bones, and the dark underbrush rustled with something unseen. As they pressed on, it grew darker, the moonlight choked by smothering branches above. Tim's mind raced, fighting against fear. What was happening? What had they stumbled into? Questions, doubts, and shadows blurred in his head. Then another howl echoed, a dreadful sound that echoed through the trees. "We can't be trapped," Clara gasped beside him, her eyes wide with terror. "We need to get out of here." They pressed on, adrenaline pumping through their veins, tearing through the underbrush, every crack of a twig mentally destabilizing them further. The woods twisted, fangs of brambles reaching for them. Tim recoiled, nearly losing his footing again, before Clara grasped his arm, determination cutting through her fear as she pulled him forward. As they neared what they hoped was a clearing, the chanting returned, an insidious rhythm piercing the chaos. It hung in the air, growing louder, merging with the howling winds. They stumbled, guided only by the infernal sound. "Clara, we need to find Sarah." Tim's voice was a desperate rasp now, edged with urgency. "I don't want to hear it," she shouted back, her eyes wild and pleading. "This place, it's wrong." Just then, a flicker of movement caught Tim's eye. He turned and saw shapes emerging from the shadows. People, or more creatures of the darkness? They stumbled out from the thicket like lost souls, faces gaunt, eyes sunken and hollow. "Join us," they murmured, echoing the gaunt figure's plea. Tim stopped dead in his tracks. The pit in his stomach dropped. "What happened to them?" he whispered, horror creeping into every bone of his being. "Tim!" Clara's voice broke through his frozen state. The shadows of these lost beings advanced slowly, extending their hands toward them, a grotesque invitation. "No," he muttered under his breath, "we have to keep moving." But Clara stood transfixed, thunderstruck as the figures spoke of Sarah. She was here. The chilling resonance of their words bound her, the plea echoing in her heart. "No, this is a trick." Tim tugged at her arm, but doubt flickered in her eyes. "Clara, resist them." With one last effort, he yanked her away from their grasp, plunging deeper into the darkness, the haunting chant fading, but the terrifying echoes remaining. But a new sound grew behind them, a rustling that morphed into a roar, the very trees tearing apart. Tim glanced over his shoulder, dread filling his chest, as a massive shape emerged from the woods, the gaunt figure once more, followed by the throng of hooded, pallid figures. "Join us," their voices sang in horrifying unison as the earth rumbled again beneath their feet, making the ground tremble. Now more than ever, they had no choice but to push forward into the relentless abyss. What lay ahead could be salvation or doom. "Tim, I'm scared," Clara admitted, real fear dawning on her face. Before he could respond, a blinding light flashed through the trees, illuminating their surroundings. "Is that—" Tim began, but the words died in his throat. In the light stood another figure, cloaked, shrouded in mystery. Help, it beckoned softly, resonating through the chaos. Who are you? Tim yelled, eyes narrowing as uncertainty gnawed at it. Their luck could still change. Or would this twist lead them into an even deeper darkness? The figure took a step closer, revealing a face half hidden in the cloak's shadow. It wore a mask, a twisted, grotesque shape that bore an unsettling grin. Tim felt Clara shudder beside him. Help! The plea echoed once more, a sound like a distant whisper carried on the wind. The air thickened, and for a moment it felt as if time had stopped, locked in the horrifying crossroads of uncertainty. Are you with them? Tim took a step back, unwilling to be lured into the trap that felt ever more suffocating around them. The surrounding trees leaned towards them, as if eavesdropping on their encounter, cloaked in watchful silence. No, it breathed, voice ragged as if it had crawled from the depths of the earth. I am a guide. Guide, Clara echoed, her voice low, a mixture of hope and skepticism dancing between her words. To where? To the exit, from their grasp, the figure replied, pointing at the encroaching shadows. But it is not free. You must choose wisely. Tim exchanged a glance with Clara, a flicker of desperation igniting in his chest. How do we know we can trust you? A chilling laugh escaped the creature, slicing through the night's silence. Trust is a fragile thing in this wretched place, but every choice has a consequence. Behind them, the chant swelled again, the ominous harmony of the hooded figures rising to a fever pitch. Tim could feel the weight of their presence growing heavier, each thumping heartbeat adding to the tension. It was a taunting choir of malevolence, wrestling against the stranger's promise of escape. Tim, Clara said quietly, we need to decide. The woods felt alive, a sentient entity reacting to their fear. A gust of wind rushed through, sending leaves swirling madly like spirits trapped in a funnel of despair. With every heartbeat, the ground vibrated under their feet. Trust me, the figure urged, but uncertainty sliced through Tim's resolve. They are already here. They hunger for you. A sacrifice is needed. What do you mean? Tim's voice faltered, the truth starting to eat away at his hope. Someone must stay. It leaned closer, its mask revealing only darker shadows, to sate their thirst, to keep the rest of you safe. Of course, Clara said sharply, fear transformed into defiance. This isn't a choice. This is a trap. Tim grabbed her arm, his chest tightening with the revelation. Their instincts screamed at them to run, to escape, but the force pulling them in two directions, toward the malicious lure of the figures and the tempting offer from the cloaked stranger, felt insatiable. Run, Tim shouted, half dragging Clara into the thicket. We can't trust it. The shadows behind them screamed in protest, the phantom voices filling the air with rage. For every step they took, the forest retaliated, branches snapping like whips, even the ground shifting beneath them, betraying their every movement. Trust me, the figure urged, but uncertainty sliced through Tim's resolve. They are already here. They hunger for you. A sacrifice is needed. What do you mean? Tim's voice faltered, the truth starting to eat away at his hope. Someone must stay. It leaned closer, its mask revealing only darker shadows, to sate their thirst, to keep the rest of you safe. Of course, Clara said sharply, fear transformed into defiance. This isn't a choice. This is a trap. Tim grabbed her arm, his chest tightening with the revelation. Their instinct screamed at them to run, to escape, but the force pulling them in two directions, toward the malicious lure of the figures and the tempting offer from the cloaked stranger, felt insatiable. Run, Tim shouted, half dragging Clara into the thicket. We can't trust it. The shadows behind them screamed in protest, the phantom voices filling the air with rage. For every step they took, the forest retaliated, branches snapping like whips, even the ground shifting beneath them, betraying their every movement.
But then a chilling scream echoed through the forest, a voice Tim recognized well. "Sarah!" he cried out, panic screeching through him. It was a cry for help, swallowed by the darkness, intertwining with the beckoning of the figures behind them. "Tim, we can't just leave her!" Clara's eyes shone with terror and anguish, desperately searching the shadows. "Clara, we're out of time!" The tangled thicket closed in, and the enchantments of the chanting grew louder. The figure in the cloak had disappeared, leaving only the sickening air thick with foreboding. Tim grabbed Clara's hand tighter, pushing through the branches. "We need to choose between sacrifice and escape," he panted. "I won't lose anyone else to this nightmare." Suddenly, they broke through the underbrush into a clearing. But the clearing felt wrong. A palpable tension hung in the air, illuminated by an unnatural glow. "Tim, over there!" Clara pointed at a swirling mist gathering in the center, dark and full of whispers, illuminating faces twisted in agony. Breath catching in his throat, Tim watched as the mist rippled, taking form, beckoning them in. They stood at the edge of a threshold between salvation and doom. "Will you enter?" the mist hissed, a promise unspoken, but ominous, steeped in dread. The shadows loomed closer, chanting once more, punctuated by Sarah's distant cries. As the torrent of choices surged towards them, Tim felt the grip of inevitability close in. "Whatever we do, it has to be now," he shouted, urgency clawing at his voice, knowing there might be no turning back. What awaited them, if they crossed that threshold, could seal their fate, together or apart. And as the mist swirled denser, Tim realized clarity was a luxury they no longer possessed. Do we go, or do we fight? Fear shot through Tim like a lightning bolt as the mist coiled around their feet, drawing them ever closer to its twisted heart. He could feel the pulse of the forest beneath him, thrumming in sync with the mounting terror. Clara's grip tightened on his wrist, a mix of desperation and resolve. "Tim, we can't just abandon Sarah." Her voice trembled, caught between hope and dread, echoing the tumult bubbling in him. The mist swirled, its whispers swirling into discernible words. "Join us. She craves the freedom you offer." The melody wove through the air, seductive yet cruel, pulling at the strands of Tim's shrinking courage. The chanting from the shadows surged anew, rising into an unyielding crescendo, as if the forest itself was alive, urging them to make a choice, to leap into the unknown, or stay and face the encroaching darkness. "Tim," Clara pulled at him, "we have to do something. We owe it to her." In that moment, the air thickened, choked by the cries of those trapped within the mist. Sarah's voice echoed again, shriller this time, punctured with pure fear. "Help me, please, I can't." The sound broke off, drowned in the festival's chants. Tim's heart raced as guilt clawed at him. "I can't leave her, but if we take one step into that mist..." He could almost feel the tendrils wrapping around him, suffocating him with uncertainty. Suddenly, the mist split apart, revealing a heart-wrenching vision. There, at its center, Sarah's face emerged, her eyes wild with panic. "Tim, Clara, it's real! They won't let me go!" Clara screamed, "No, we have to reach her!" The thought of Sarah trapped, alone, sent Tim's pulse racing. Yet the looming shadows flickered, shifting in anticipation, murmuring their insatiable hunger. "We can't trust it," Tim shouted, fisting Clara's hand. "That mist might lead us straight to her." But he couldn't finish. The shadows surged forth, and the voice from the mist hissed, sultry and low. "You can't hold back fate, little ones. Consume your fear. It's the price of your salvation." With a surge of determination, Tim ventured a step toward the mist. It felt like stepping into ice water, cold, overwhelming, hypnotic. He could see a path,
a beckoning tunnel of anguish twisting toward Sarah. But he remembered the figure's warning. A sacrifice would be demanded. "Tim, no!" Clara's voice snapped him back. "We won't let it take you." He hesitated, his heart pounding, oscillating between rescue and self-preservation. What if I go? The thought hung heavy in the air, ominous yet liberating. "But what if it doesn't bring you back?" Clara cried, tears glimmering in her eyes. "I can't lose you both." Her desperation pierced through the fog of fear. Tim realized the danger. They had entered a game with forces beyond their understanding. The mist thickened again, a wall closing in. Shadows stretched and writhed, the voices surrounding them drowning out their thoughts. Tick-tock, time to choose, or be chosen for the feast. Tim's mind raced. If we do nothing, we could lose Sarah and lose ourselves. He turned to Clara, the haze of fleeting hope and bleak dread in her eyes. "What do we do?" "I don't know, but we need to find a way to fight back," she said fiercely, determination igniting in the darkness. "Then we need a plan, but we can't stay here." As the shadows tightened around them, Tim felt a sudden rush of adrenaline. "On 3, we break toward the mist, together." "Together," Clara echoed, steely resolve in her voice. As they counted down, an ear-splitting shriek pierced through the air, far worse than anything they had faced thus far, and the answer swirled in the blackness, cruel and waiting. In that split second, Tim realized the choice had already been made for them. 1, 2, 3! They charged, hearts racing, into the swirling darkness, aware they were crossing into realms that would shatter them forever. As the mist engulfed them, the shadows writhed with glee, eager for their arrival. Would this be their redemption, or their end? The world twisted around them as they plunged into the mist. Tim and Clara stumbled forward, darkness closing in, obscuring everything familiar. A cold claw gripped their throats, tightening.
With every heartbeat, every breath hung heavy, thick with dread. "Can you see anything?" Clara's voice was strained, barely above a whisper. "Nothing," Tim gasped, panic creeping into his chest. The mist felt alive, swirling around them, biting at their skin like icy fingers. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light pierced through the fog. Tim shielded his eyes, heart pounding. As the brightness faded, he found himself standing in a clearing, an unnatural stillness hanging in the air. The forest loomed around them, twisted trees stretching upward like skeletal fingers. "Where are we?" Clara asked, scanning their surroundings. "Something's not right," Tim muttered, squinting into the creeping shadows. The air crackled with unease, a palpable force lingering just at the edge of their senses. A low hum emerged from the darkness, promising terrors untold. From the gloom, shadows flickered, distorting into monstrous shapes. Tim could almost see faces in the darkness, twisted, anguished, begging. His breath quickened. It was as if the forest itself held memories of suffering, weaving them into the very fabric of the mist. "Tim," Clara turned, horror etched in her eyes. "What if we can't find Sarah? What if this is where we're meant to stay?" "No," he shook his head, trying to shake off the encroaching despair. "We're going to find her. We have to find a way out." A sudden rustling erupted from the trees, gaining volume as a figure emerged, cloaked in a tattered robe. Its face remained shrouded, but an overwhelming presence filled the space, oppressive and chilling. The corners of Tim's vision danced with distortion, spiraling him deeper into dread. "Foolish children," a voice echoed, smooth yet laced with malice. "You seek that which cannot be saved. Your friend lies beyond your reach, imprisoned by her own desires." "No," Clara cried out, stepping back. "We won't believe you." The figure laughed, a hollow sound that reverberated through their bones. Tim felt a cold sweat slide down his spine.
Desperation clawed at his mind. Was this all an elaborate trap? Is it salvation you desire? The figure continued, stepping closer, the darkness swirling with its movements. A sacrifice will be made. Choose wisely, or a fate worse than death awaits. Tim's heart raced. What do you want from us? It is not what I want, but what you seek, the figure said, gesturing toward the creeping shadows. Fear binds the souls here. Release yours, and perhaps you may yet save her. Hold on to it and lose everything. Clara trembled beside him, doubt washing over her face. What if it's a trick? We can't trust them. In that moment, Tim felt the weight of their bonds, his love for Sarah, the guilt clawing at him, the necessity to protect Clara. Staring into the swirling shadows, he contemplated the impossible choice. Would he plunge into the darkness, releasing his fear, only to be consumed? A shriek surged through the mist, a sound unlike any he had ever heard. A wail filled with anguish, a voice he recognized.
Tim, help me, please! Sarah! Desperation surged within him, pushing him forward. Clara grabbed his arm, but he shook her off, his resolve hardening. I have to help her! No! Clara screamed, her voice drowning in the chaos. It's a trap! But the shadows had already begun to engulf him, a suffocating wave pulling him toward that heartbreaking cry. A choice loomed like a dark cloud, casting shadows over every flicker of hope. Tim took a deep breath, the tastes of fear and determination intertwining. He had to choose, but the consequences loomed ominously. How do you protect the ones you love when love itself becomes the sacrifice? As Clara reached for him, things blurred, time stretched, tearing at the fabric of reality. Would he have the strength to face whatever wickedness lay ahead? The mist thickened, pulling him deeper into its grasp. What awaited him on the other side? Would he find Sarah, or plunge into darkness from which there would be no return? In that instant, a new, chilling whisper caressed his ear. They're waiting for you to choose. Tim's heart raced, an electric surge of terror coursing through him. Would he dare to uncover the truth, or would the forest seal their fates forever? The shadows wrapped around Tim, coiling tightly, almost suffocating him. It felt like a heartbeat, steady and alive, drumming in tandem with his own, drawing him deeper into the forest's dark heart. The cry of Sarah echoed in his ears, growing fainter, yet more urgent. Tim! The voice was laced with desperation, and with it came a vivid image, Sarah's face twisted in horror. That was enough to push him onward, deeper into the nightmare. Clara's panicked words faded as he tore away, guilt battling with the overpowering instinct to save her. Behind him, Clara shouted, her voice a tether he desperately wanted to ignore. If Sarah needed him, he couldn't turn back. He wouldn't. But a nagging doubt burrowed into his mind. What if the shadows were right? As he plunged deeper, the mist thickened, swirling around his legs like a shroud. Branches reached out, snagging at his clothes, tugging him back. Strange whispers seemed to rise from the ground, intertwining with his thoughts, sowing seeds of panic. Is this really for her? Can you even save her? He pressed forward, fighting against the pull of despair. The dim light that flickered through the fog revealed twisted faces in the bark of the trees, their mouths silently screaming as if trapped in a never-ending agony. Tim, help me! Sarah's voice broke through the whispers, raw and desperate. He could sense her close, just beyond the horizon of shadows. Hold on, I'm coming, he shouted, forcing the words past a throat constricted by fear. He stumbled into a clearing, the air shifting to a warm, suffocating blanket. In front of him stood the twisted figure, its features still obscured by darkness. You're too late, child, it said, voice droning with mockery. Do you truly believe you can save her? You're merely a pawn in a game far older than you. Shut up! Tim bit down the rising dread. I'll find her. With every breath, the air grew heavier, each inhalation thickened by the weight of despair emanating from the trees. They seemed to close in, branches snapping like bones. A rustling noise echoed behind him. Clara! She was following. Tim, don't listen to it! She cried out, crashing into the clearing, eyes wide, skin pale. We need to go back. No! The desperation in his voice was palpable, shaking him to his core. I can't lose her, not now. Mocking laughter reverberated from the shadows, sending icy fingers down his spine. You'd risk everything for a mere shadow of her former self? How noble! The figure stepped forward, the mist parting like a curtain to reveal its twisted features, a hollow face, eyes black as coal, and a mouth etching into a grin. Choose, boy. Release your fear, and perhaps she will live. Hold on to it, and reap the horror that awaits. Tim's heart thundered in his chest. He could feel the weight of the decision looming like a storm. He could no longer tell where Sarah's voice ended and the figure's taunts began. I'm not afraid, he shouted, though the tremor in his voice gave him away. The forest responded with a shriek, the wind whipping at his face, threatening to pull him back into the abyss. Prove it then, the figure howled as shadows swelled around Tim, frenzy igniting the air. Everything flickered like a dying flame, darkness retreating, then lunging back, eager to consume him whole. He could feel Clara's presence beside him, face scrunched in terror, alternating between encouraging and doubtful. Tim, we need to go. This isn't worth it. But it was too late. The shadows danced before him, tempting, pleading, throwing Sarah's visage into his thoughts, awakening his rage. The figure pulled back, darkness swirling into a vortex, leaving him momentarily suspended. Was he supposed to let go? Was not fearing the way to save her? Inside, his heart quaked in uncertainty. The agony of choice gnawed at him as he felt the weight of the forest press in closer, the whispers louder, threatening the very essence of who he was. Tim, Clara called, her voice snapping him back, urgency laced with fear. We can't stay here. He turned to her, breath hitching. What if I can save her? The darkness swelled again, an invitation mixed with violence as the last echo of Sarah's call faded. The figure loomed larger, its grin stretching wider, impossibly unsettling. Then choose, it purred, a predator closing in. God help us, Tim shouted, as reality fractured once more. Would he give in to fear, or fight through the encroaching madness? The mist trembled, a new shadowy form stepping into the clearing. Your choice has consequences, Tim, it whispered, a familiar voice that sent shivers down his spine. What did it mean? How far would he go to uncover the truth? The familiar voice sent a frigid jolt through Tim. No, it can't be, he muttered, the words barely escaping his lips, as the shadows coiled tighter around him. He blinked, trying to grasp the flickering image at the edge of his memory, but it slipped away, like smoke through fingers. Tim, we have to go. Clara's urgency cut through the haze, yet the suffocating grip of the figure held him in place. The shadows pulsed, merging with Clara's frantic energy, morphing into a nightmarish blend of despair. Tim! Clara's voice trembled, drawing him back into the moment. Don't let it win. The figure leaned closer, its grotesque grin stretching impossibly wide, revealing jagged teeth. You're so close, dear boy. Relinquish your fear, and perhaps she won't have to suffer. Shut up, Tim roared, his voice echoing through the clearing. Panic surged within him, vying with a growing rage. He could feel Sarah's cries pulling at his heart, the urgency intoxicating. Waves of darkness washed over him, drawing him toward the figure.
It felt almost magnetic. Don't you want to see her again? The question slithered through the air, igniting a flicker of hope and an undertow of dread. The mist thickened with tangible despair as memories flooded back. Sarah laughing in the sunlight, her smile lighting up everything around her. But then images plummeted into shadow. Her scream, the dark figure that had taken her. Was this a game? Was he merely a pawn in whatever malevolent force peeked through his nightmares? "Tim!" Clara shouted, her voice snapping through the fog. "You have to fight it. She wouldn't want this. You're stronger than it thinks." "Stronger?" The figure chuckled, and the dark sound sent shivers cascading down Tim's spine. "You think you hold power here?" A sudden gust of wind howled, and with it came the weight of despair, a rumble in the earth, an impending doom creeping ever closer. The trees seemed to lean in, trading whispers of secrets beneath their twisted roots. Tim's legs trembled, as if the very ground wished to swallow him whole. "Focus! Remember who you are!" Clara's voice broadening, breaking through layers of doubt wrapping around him tighter than the shadows. Tim realized then he needed to reclaim his will. He wasn't at the mercy of this horror. With each breath, he fought internal demons, forcing the shadows to retreat, at least for now. "Sarah needs me. She can't be lost to this," he murmured, gathering strength. The mist swirled, but the whispers now faltered. They couldn't drown out his resolve. "Then prove it," the figure hissed, its tone cool and mocking. "Face what you fear most, boy. Only then can the truth be yours. Only then will you win her freedom." Tim knew the figure was taunting him, casting doubt like a net over his resolve. But deeper than fear, he felt a purpose rise. "Let's go," he urged Clara, determination solidifying in his voice. He reached for
her hand, and she took it fiercely, pressing her palm against his, grounding him against the thrumming chaos. With a mighty leap, he bolted straight into the swirling darkness. The shadows howled in anger, clinging desperately but unable to snatch him back. "Where is she?" he shouted into the depths, voice carved with fury. "Show me!" The air around him shimmered, shifting, and new figures wavered in the distance, faint outlines, moments of Sarah flickering in the shadows. His heart raced. Was she out there, or just another tempting mirage constructed by the malevolence he defied? "Tim!" Clara shouted, her voice strained as she pulled him back. "What are you doing? We shouldn't be here." But he couldn't look away. With every step deeper into the darkness, a cold fire ignited within him. "Help me find her," he demanded, conviction marking each syllable. Before him, a doorway of shadows began to pulsate, vibrating with energy as if alive. His heart thudded, anticipation mixing with dread. "Step through, and all shall be revealed," the figure jeered, now looming further back, as if afraid of what lay ahead. Then, as if sensing his uncertainty, the doorway opened wider, a blinding light spilling from within. The conflicting emotions flared within him, fear, hope, desperation. It beckoned boldly, promising answers and perhaps salvation. "Tim," Clara called again, fear for him evident in her eyes. "We must go back. Don't. It's a trap." Yet, with one last glance back at Clara, he felt himself drawn toward the light. "Sarah," he whispered, and without another moment of hesitation, he stepped through. But the moment he crossed the threshold, the world warped violently, time folding like a piece of paper. "Tim, no!" Clara's shout echoed behind him, shrinking into the swirling chaos of light and shadow. What awaited him on the other side? He could only hope his resolve had been enough. The realization hit him like an icy wave. He might just have sealed their fates. What if Sarah wasn't the only one in danger? Tim stumbled through the doorway and landed hard on solid ground. The world around him twisted and spun like a carnival ride gone wrong. Blinking against the bright light, he saw shadows dancing grotesquely over a silver landscape, images from horrific nightmares etched along the edges. "Sarah!" he shouted,
but the sound barely crawled out, as if the air itself conspired to keep him silent. A chill danced down his spine, and instinctively he turned, searching the space behind him. The darkness he had emerged from loomed ominously, urging him to return, to flee, but he couldn't turn back now. He needed to find her. His heart raced as he stepped further into the surreal realm, a stark contrast to the dark woods. The ground began to tremble, rolling beneath him like waves. Visions bubbled up, a flicker of laughter, a flash of a tear-soaked face. Sarah. If she was trapped here, he would find her. Trust. A whisper coiled around him, swirling in the ether.
Like smoke. You must choose. Your heart will guide. Guide me where? Tim barked back, his voice echoing in anger. Guide me to her! With each step, the landscape shifted, morphing into a twisted version of his memories. Past camping trips, happy moments distorted, the laughter of his family mingling with cries of despair. Shadows lurked at the edges, remnants of fear gnawing of him. Tim! The sound echoed through the haze like a lifeline. He dug his heels into the ground, heart racing toward that familiar voice. Sarah, he called again, desperation sharpening his instincts. Where are you? But the illusions only deepened. He could see them now, figures moving stealthily in the distance, their faces distorted, mouths forming words he couldn't hear. They extended bony hands, pleading, reaching. Do not let them win. Clara's voice pierced through the fog, clear and loud. Tim turned, spotting her silhouette against the chaos swirling around him. Clara, he shouted, relief flooding his chest. But as he took a step toward her, the shadows thickened, wrapping tighter around him, eager to pull him back into their clutches. Tim! Clara's terror flowed through him, her eyes wide with panic. We must break free. This isn't real. No, she's in here. Tim was resolute now. I can feel her. Then the shadows shifted again, revealing fleeting images of Sarah, her eyes wide, her mouth moving, though no sound came. The weight of his fear crashed into him anew as he remembered her cries. Help me, please. Every instinct urged him to run toward her, to shatter the space that held her prisoner. Stop! The figure that haunted the darkness emerged before him, a swirling mass of shadow and malevolence. You cannot save her. She is never meant to be saved. No, I won't believe you, Tim shouted, rage bubbling in his chest. You don't control this. He felt the ground harden beneath him into roots and branches, a reminder of the forest, the echoes of every story, every tale that warned him of this darkness. You're lying! Then prove it. The shadows danced with wicked delight, their whispers swirling, tempting voices drawing him closer to the horror he fought against. Sarah, he yelled, blocking out the noise. He wouldn't let them take her voice away. In a burst of adrenaline, he pushed forward, breaking through the encircling shadows into a clearing illuminated by flickering lights. There she was. Sarah! Her outline stood in the center, her arms reaching for him, but chains of darkness wrapped around her, holding her fast, pulling her into a whirlpool of confusion. Tim, she gasped, her eyes brimming with tears. Help me! With a defiant roar, Tim lunged forward. He felt the chains tugging relentlessly, but determination fueled every ounce of his strength. Words surged through him, fortifying his resolve. I'm coming for you! I won't leave you! The shadows shrieked in fury as he tore at the darkness, grappling with the twisting tendrils that threatened to consume him. The voices cried out in anger and despair, trying to pull him into their depths. Fear cannot bind me, he shouted, a scream of defiance that shattered the air. Love binds me. I'll find you, Sarah. He grasped the chains, wings of darkness clawing at his skin, pain lacing through him, but he held on fiercely, biting back the hopelessness gnawing at his heart.
With one last push of energy stemming from fear and love, he ripped the chains apart. "No!" the shadows screeched, their darkness mixing with turmoil. But Tim ignored the wails. "I will save her." With each lunge, each flash of courage, the chains began to disintegrate. Light exploded around him, illuminating their connection. Tim could feel Sarah's presence intensifying, her strength filling the air, merging with his love. "Tim, I'm here!" As the final chains shattered, the mist exploded outward like fireworks. The world trembled in gratitude, shadows retreating, howling in agony as he drew her close, wrapping his arms around her, holding on to the warmth of life. Together they breathed, the air filled with fresh beginnings. As the darkness fled, Clara rushed to their side, her face glowing with relief. "Are you okay?" she breathed, brushing a hand across Sarah's cheek, trembling with worry. "I am now," Sarah whispered, clutching Tim tightly. The world transformed around them, the landscape shifting like a quilt, pieces of their souls threading back to life. The echoes of darkness faded, but the shadows still held secrets, whispers of a night that could not be forgotten. Together, against the fading darkness, they forged ahead as dawn broke, painting the sky in soft hues of pastels, the promise of new memories. But as they stepped into the light, lingering sounds behind them hinted that perhaps the battle wasn't over. The woods, ever watchful, lay in wait, whispering their stories, reminding them that some shadows never truly disappear. "Let's go home," Tim said, heart full of warmth, determined never to return. But a part of him remembered, the words unspoken, vibrating deep inside, a pledge, a fear, an oath that the trails would never quite let them go. And as they stepped forward, hope and darkness walked beside them. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. If you're buzzing with thoughts about the ending, flood the comments section with your theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.